Honourable members, prayers. Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee to look with favor upon this Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. Grant that it may perform its high duty as in thy sight. Give divine guidance to the President of the Republic. Endow members of Parliament and ministers of state with discernment and vision, integrity and courage, that through the labors of government, this land and people may be well and truly served, and their good purposes for the common human life be realized in our midst. O God, grant us the vision of our country, fair as it might be, a country of righteousness, where none shall wrong his neighbor, a country of plenty, where evil and poverty shall be done away with, a country of brotherhood, where all success shall be founded on service and honor shall be given to the deserving, a country of peace, where government shall rest on the will of the people and the love for the common good. Bless the efforts of those who struggle to make this vision a living reality. Inspire and strengthen our people that they may give time, thought, and sacrifice to speed the day of the coming beauty of Ghana and Africa. Amen. Honourable members, as you are certainly aware, the Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament, Professor Aaron Michael Okwei, is unable to be with us at the moment in view of the overriding circumstances brought to bear on him on the temporary assumption of duties as the President of the Republic. I'm therefore standing in his stead to welcome you to this morning of the first meeting of the second session on the parliamentary calendar. For a little over 2 weeks now, honourable members have been in and out of Parliament on 2 special recalls at rather short notices, but you, members, have on each occasion cooperated with the chair and indeed the leadership by responding to the summons in good numbers. The Speaker and leadership have been impressed by your prompt attendance and can only hope that this will be sustained to enable the House to go through its work for the meeting, which promises to be busy. Despite the inherent fatigue arising from the stressful pre-meeting activities in your respective constituencies, I have no doubt that you are well prepared to commence work in earnest. Honourable members, I expect that committees of the House that sat during the recess will continue with their unfinished business, and those specifically charged to undertake some special assignments should have completed their work by now and be ready to submit their reports to the plenary. As you know, our mandate of scrutinizing government business and holding public officials to account garnered a lot of public interest as a result of the special ad hoc committee set up to investigate the alleged levy and collection of various sums of money from expatriate business during the Expatriate Business Awards in Accra. I suppose that substantial work has been done by the committee to meet the deadline given by Mr. Speaker to enable the House to consider the report during this meeting. Above all, I suggest that committees of the House, around which most of the work here revolve, will deepen their engagement with the populace to promote more openness and transparency in the work of Parliament. Honourable members, preparations are also ongoing to enable the House to receive the President of the Republic to deliver a set of to deliver a message on the state of the nation pursuant to Article 67 of the 1992 Constitution. This constitutional obligation of the President of the Republic also affords the House and indeed all Ghanaians an appreciable insight of the stewardship of the President held in trust for all Ghanaians. It is therefore important that not only do we receive him in the House with pomp and pageantry, but we also ensure that we apply ourselves to the requisite rules of the House by giving him the dignified audience, more so when the delivery of the address is likely to be broadcast live and widely within and outside the country. I hope and pray with your support and the superintendence of God Almighty, this meeting will be fruitful and measure up to the expectations of the people we represent. Thank you and welcome for all honorable members. Honorable members, we have the votes and proceedings of the emergency meeting held on 5th January 2018. We shall consider and adopt them now. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Page 11. Page 12. Page 13. Very well. There being no corrections, the votes and proceedings of Friday, 5th January 2018, hereby adopted as a true record of the proceedings of that day. We shall now consider the vote and proceedings of Sunday, the 21st January. Very well, Honorable Member for Suhum. Well, we shall consider the votes and proceedings of Sunday, the 21st January 2018. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on page 1, the document is titled, "In the first session of the 7th Parliament of the 4th Republic of Ghana." Mr. Speaker, to the best of my knowledge, the first session ended on 6th January 2018. So I'm wondering how the sitting last Sunday could be captured under the first session.
Your suggestion is that this meeting, the meeting on Sunday 21st, was not part of the third meeting of the first session. Is that right?
Mr. Speaker, a session of Parliament is 12 months from the day it first sits. Parliament first sat on 7th January 2017. And so the first session expired January 6, 2018. And so a sitting last Sunday could not be part of the first session. That's my assertion.
Yes, honorable leaders, can I hear you on this issue raised? What else? Honorable member for West, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, we are starting the second session. Now, the last time we met should belong to the oath. It's today that you have decided that today is the second session. So any meeting before then belongs to the first. That it is not about 7th. It's not about 7th January. It is about when the Speaker decides when he will convene Parliament. So we could be convened even in March. So it will still be the first. So this other one belongs to the past. I don't know why you want to go back. You want to go to the present when you are. Thank you very much.
Yes, the Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I think a session has been defined for us in our orders. And a session means a series of meetings of Parliament within a period of 12 months. And that is under Order 7. Mr. Speaker, so I'm inclined to agree with the member for School that we started on 7th January, and the session then ends on the day before that 7th, which is 6th January. The Speaker, you may recollect that I raised this matter in the previous Parliament when we had to have a meeting, and I said that it should be described as the second session. On that occasion, it was before 6th January. And so the Speaker drew attention that indeed, to the extent that it's before 6th January, it should belong to the previous session. And I agreed with him. The Speaker, so on the face of this, and given what happened earlier, I'm inclined to agree with the member for Suhum that indeed this is the Sunday meeting is part of the second session. I do know that before then, we had programmed to start the second session on the 23rd. An announcement had already gone out. Notwithstanding, the Speaker, the meeting then would alter what program we had set for ourselves, and that would be the first sitting. Indeed, that sitting should also be considered as a meeting. It's a one-day meeting. Mr. Speaker, and that is why I say what I said before we exited. So I agree with him that Mr. Speaker, as for the minority leader, I tell him that his intuitive response to anything is to say no, and then come back to rationalize it later. Speaker, so I believe that is right, that indeed that ought to be considered as part, the Sunday sitting and indeed meeting ought to be considered as part of the second session, to the extent that it happened after the 7th of January. Speaker, thank you.
Yes, Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the majority leader who has decided to be a student of social psychology now can explain intuitive behavior. Mr. Speaker, I do not intend to respond to him. Rather than, Mr. Speaker, with your indulgence, refer you to Order 37 of the Standing Orders, which is on summoning and dissolution of Parliament. And Mr. Speaker, Order 37 reads, there shall be a session of Parliament at least once in every year, except that a period of 12 months shall not intervene between the last sitting of Parliament in one session and the first sitting thereof in the next session. Mr. Speaker, a session of Parliament shall be held at such place within Ghana and shall commence at such time as Mr. Speaker may by constitutional instrument appoint. No. Mr. Speaker, you have accordingly served notices to all members of Parliament and to the Ghanaian people that today marks the beginning of the second session of Parliament, appropriately, legally, and constitutionally. Mr. Speaker, what happened was an emergency, probably not contemplated under the standing orders. So in the review of the standing orders that, Mr. Speaker, you chair, let the leader be guided. But Mr. Speaker, this time not by intuitive behavior, but by the law. But by the law. Now, Mr. Speaker, you have so called, and he should take a cue from your opening statement in welcoming members and getting this session so declared. Mr. Speaker, is therefore competently within your hands as you have done. To the matter which has been raised by one of my colleagues who shows a lot of depth when it comes to the standing orders, is for us to note it as to how to contain such matters as a house. Yes. But I cannot agree with the majority leader that that could be a right. Yes, an event happened, but that event cannot drive away from the, were you not served notice by Mr. Speaker? What did the notice tell you? That he is convening the second session. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, the honourable member for Wa Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want us to revert our minds to Order 5, which says that in case of doubts, these orders, the whole of the orders, shall be interpreted by Mr. Speaker as he deems fit. Mr. Speaker, you have indicated to us that this is the beginning of the session. And so that is your interpretation of what is contained here. And I think that we have no cause to complain or to say that it was not part of last year's session, the last session. So I think, Mr. Speaker, we are in the right direction. Thank you.
Yes, the honourable member for Boko Central.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think Order 6 might also be very helpful in resolving this matter. In cases not provided for in these orders, Mr. Speaker shall make provisions as he deems fit. Mr. Speaker, I think that so Mr. Speaker, there's no problem at all.
Very well. Honourable members. Yes, honourable majority.
Mr. Speaker, I think in this House, we operate with two basic documents: the standing orders and the Constitution. The relative importance of
the Constitution.
Mr. Speaker, the relative importance of the document finds expression in the content and volume of the document. In this case, the Constitution. And Mr. Speaker, you may apply yourself to Article 112. To Article 112. And Mr. Speaker, you would be tempted to indeed violently disagree with what my colleagues on the other side are saying. I'm surprised that, in particular, the honourable member for Boku West. I thought we had agreed on this, and then he comes and he makes a swerve. Mr. Speaker, I think we are very clear in our minds. Yes, the summons were issued before the event of 5th January, Mr. Speaker, and it will alter, the import of it will alter the status quo. That is the event, because it happened after 7th January. It's in the new session. And so, Mr. Speaker, I don't see why we should be splitting hairs on it. In any event, we are all learning, And Mr. Speaker, to those of them who are saying that we should resort to Order 6, there are no doubts. And they shouldn't create doubts where there are no doubts. There are no doubts at all.
You have had a chance. Let me listen to the young man.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I'm also looking at Order 38, and I am interpreting it to mean that the standing orders make room for special requests and special sessions. And so I'm just wondering, and I would like your guidance, if it wouldn't be appropriate to say that the sittings that we are discussing can, instead of being referred to as in the first session, can also be during the special session of the 7th Parliament. Mr. Speaker, I seek your guidance. Because that was a special sitting, and it says that, and if it is outside the first session and outside the second session, it passes as a special session that was called by members. Thank you very much.
Honourable Member for Boko Central.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a matter relating to what happened this morning. So, Speaker, when you came in, you announced that because the Speaker is acting as President, he is unable to chair proceedings, and you proceeded to commence proceedings. So, Speaker, if you look at Order 13, Order 13.2. Order 13.2 says that whenever the House is informed by the clerk at the table of the unavoidable absence of Mr. Speaker, the first Deputy Speaker shall perform the duties and exercise the authority of Mr. Speaker in relation to all proceedings of the House until Mr. Speaker resumes the chair without any further communication to the House. So, Speaker, the clerk at the table did not tell us that the Speaker is unavoidably absent.
Let's take one matter at a time. We have a matter to determine whether the meeting on 21st January falls within the third session or the third meeting or this new session. Let's finish with that. Then I'll give you time to start a new controversy. On which one do you wish to comment, Honourable Member for Tamale Central?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I had wanted to remain quiet because the Honourable Suhum has raised a very important point. But the Honourable Member for Suhum's point has further been buttressed by, in fact, has been answered by Honourable Ayerge's the matter that he was trying to raise in limine. When we were summoned for the special session, the baton was effectively passed over to you. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, you assumed the seat without further announcing to us, without the clerk further announcing to us that the Speaker was unavoidably absent. It therefore follows without any doubt that the meeting we had on the 1st falls squarely within the second session, and that is why the Speaker assumed the seat without further announcement, contrary to Order 13, Rule 2 of the Standing Orders. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Honourable members, I think this is an opportunity for us to define for ourselves these intervening circumstances which were probably not anticipated at the time we were carving out the rules. If we interpreted that it falls outside the second session, then what would we have? A hybrid in between the sections? The first session ended on 6th January. Any day after that, we can start the second session. even if it is an emergency meeting, I think it is an emergency meeting within the second session. And I direct that the meeting held on 21st January be considered as a special meeting within the second session. I so rule. Honorable, shall we consider the votes and proceedings? Page 1. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Very well, honourable members. The votes and proceedings of 21st January as amended is hereby adopted as a true record of the proceedings. Item 3 on the other paper. Honorable Samuel Kujeto, I have had to reconsider admitting your statement. We will have a discussion. We will do the business statements. Honorable members, forgive me. On your other paper, you find that business statement is not stated there. So please correct and insert business statement before statements. I'll now invite the majority leader to present the business statement for the week.
Speaker, because we got started on procedural issues, I guess we may have to look at where to appropriately capture the presentation of the business statement. Because indeed, the orders, strictly speaking, Order 53 does not really mention business statement. So maybe going forward, we should begin to look at exactly where to place it. Other than that, maybe it may come under the general provision of statements. Mr. Speaker, my attention is being drawn to a convention. I'm talking about the language and tenor of what is captured in the standing orders. Conventions are not captured in the standing orders. Mr. Speaker, the Business Committee met today, the 23rd of January, 2018, and arranged business of the House for the first week ending the 26th of January, 2018. Speaker, the committee accordingly submits its report as follows. Speaker, you may read any communications to the House whenever they are available. Questions The Business Committee has programmed the following ministers to respond to questions asked of them during the week. And may I urge honorable members who have interest in the questions that they submitted previously that were not responded to give indications to the clerks at table that they still want to pursue those questions, because I do know that some of the questions have expired by the nature and form in which they were submitted. Mr. Speaker, the Minister for Railways Development is scheduled to answer one question, and the Minister responsible for Gender, Children and Social Protection has 2 questions to answer. There is one urgent question that, Speaker, if you have duly admitted, may be answered on the floor of the House. Speaker, pursuant to Order 72, the Ministers of State may be permitted to make statements of government policy, and statements duly admitted by the Right Honourable Speaker may be made in the House by honourable members in accordance with Order 72. Speaker, bills may be presented to the House for first reading, and those of urgent nature may be taken through the various stages in one day in accordance with Order 119. Papers and committee reports may also be presented to the House. Speaker, motions may be debated and their consequential resolutions, if any, taken during the week. In accordance with Standing Order 162 and subject to Order 53, the committee submits to this House the order in which the business of the House shall be taken during the week under consideration. Speaker, today statements may be made and papers may also be presented. Committees may sit. On Wednesday, statements may be made, papers may be presented, and motions may be moved. Committees may sit. On Thursday, the urgent question in the name of the Honorable Kwame Govins Aboja, the member for Adaklu, may be taken. Statements may be made, motions may be moved, and committees may sit. Speaker, on Friday, there are 2 questions in the name of the Honorable Ladi Ayi Ayamba, the member for Pusiga. Statement may be made thereafter. A motion may be moved, and committees may sit. Speaker, because members have been given copies of the statement, I have deliberately omitted to read the entirety of the contents of the business statement, trusting that members might have read the document. So, Speaker, I beg to submit.
Honourable members, any comments? Honourable member for host.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, being the first day of our first meeting, I wish to draw the attention of the majority leader about the review of the standing orders. I believe if we have reviewed the standing order, which has started some years back, we will not be having this problem today. So I want to bring before him, I was expecting him to mention that by the end of this sitting or this session, the standing orders will be adopted by this House. Maybe let me put it to find out for him when the new standing order, the review standing orders will be ready. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honourable member for Norton.
Very grateful, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the chairman of the Business Committee for the statement and to raise a very important matter which has to do with the Supreme Court decision on the Gitmo 2, where the Supreme Court ruled that pursuant to Article 75(2), the agreement signed with the Americans will have to be ratified by this House. And indeed, in August last year, the Honorable Foreign Minister presented the agreement for ratification, which expired on the 6th of January this year. When His Excellency the President met the media last week, he indicated that by the time Parliament reconvenes, there will be a decision for ratification. But looking at the business for the week, there's only one item, which is a protocol to the Constitutive Act of the African Union relating to the Pan-African Parliament dated 27 June 2014. That's the only matter to do with the Foreign Affairs Ministry. That's a very important matter because as the days go by, we are in breach of Article 75(2), and we are affronting the decision of the Supreme Court. So, Mr. Speaker, it's a very urgent matter that I want to find out from the chairman of the Business Committee if an agreement is ready for this House for ratification, seeing that we are breaching Article 75(2) of the Constitution. I'm grateful, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Hohoe. Honourable Member for Hohoe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question or the issue is about Order 53, which talks about the order of business of the House. Looking to the activities, I realize that bullet or Roman number M talks about messages from the Council of State. I have never heard the Council of State send us any messages. And I'd like to know whether it is because they are not aware that they can send messages or because they don't have the opportunity to do so. I'd like us to look at this because the Council of State is a very important national institution. And we expect that once in a while, they come out to make statements to the House and also to the nation at large. So I'd like to draw attention to that. Thank you for the opportunity.
Member for Wa Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, following the issue raised by Honorable Bejira about the standing orders, I just want to say that it's important that there was a committee set on to deal with it. But it's a standing orders committee, and that before such report is brought to the plenary, it will be important that it's programmed to have the committee look at it and be able to have an input before finally it is brought here for us to deliberate. Because so far, I belong to the committee, a number of us belong to the committee. That committee has not met at all to consider the possible revision or amendment to the orders. And I think that in your next, what do you call it? The next time we are programming business, and it's time for us to bring this to the plenary, it will be important that there should be a recommendation that the committee look at it in a more thorough manner before it is brought to the larger House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Kumbungu.
Very grateful, Right Honourable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, whilst we are at the standing orders, there's also the issue of code of conduct for members of Parliament. I have seen a copy that was worked on previously, and my understanding is that it's not been adopted by the House. And I'm wondering if the Majority Leader could comment on that and whether or not it will be brought back again. Code of conduct. Code of conduct. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Minority Leader. Yes, Honorable Member for Bolga East.
Bulsa South.
Bulsa South. I'm rearranging your constituencies.
Very well, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, thank you so much for recognizing me. Mine is a rather simple and straightforward question, which is drawn from the chair of the business committee and the leader of the House. It has to do with his explanation of the fact that some questions perhaps may have outlived their usefulness, may have expired. And I was wondering the criteria by which he had drawn such a conclusion. If perhaps he could shed some light on that, I think it would help the rest of us so that if we have to refile some of the questions that we had filed earlier on, we would know the parameters to refile them. Given that I know that most of my questions and those of my colleagues are timeless. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, let me thank you for the opportunity. I know that the majority leader will always respond saying that I'm a member of the business committee and therefore I should not have a bite. But Mr. Speaker, there are issues sometimes which will escape all of us. I therefore intend to note just 4 issues. One will be that, Mr. Speaker, in the course of this week, probably, we should be getting the Minister for Interior and National Security to brief the House. The security of citizens and particularly the police service is very important. Happenings in Kwabinya is worrying, and we need to hear from them and resource them adequately and probably equip them and maybe even review some of our budgetary allocations if we can, in order that they can deal with matters relative to the incidence of crime in the country. I would wish that the leader knows that. Mr. Speaker, business statement, I know that he said we should be looking at the review of Order 53. I disagree with him. That is why conventions are laws. When they are practiced, and again, Mr. Speaker, yourself a good lawyer, notoriety, you don't need to repeat them and reduce them to law. Once the practice have become notorious, we in our own dealing have accepted that the business statement is such an important business. Mr. Speaker, you are yourself the chair of the standing orders. I know the diligence and hard work, except for the fire disaster and fire outbreak, we should have been bringing new conclusions to that matter. I should think that before the end of March, we should dedicate to this House a better, improved standing orders that deepens the values of parliamentary democracy. In fact, Mr. Speaker, having accompanied the majority leader to Westminster, I intend to advocate strongly that the standing orders makes room for a minority day in Parliament, which should become a permanent feature of Ghana's Parliament, so that parliamentary business is not just government business. We have a dedicated day for the minority where private members and other business will be considered. With all respect, I should acknowledge that the majority leader was here, advocated for it without success. I trust that today, with changes with the old order for the new order, I will advocate strongly for a minority day in Parliament. Mr. Speaker, my other issue will be what has been raised by the Honorable Ablakwa. And Mr. Speaker, for us to take it as a matter of urgent legal constitutional obligation on the part of the executive, and for the executive to be seen, what's your problem, respecting the courts of Ghana, indeed the Supreme Court. The ruling was 22nd June 2017, the Sassen ruling of Sophia Akufu, now the Chief Justice of the Republic. And Mr. Speaker, in that ruling, she was emphatic that within 90 days, within 90 days, within 90 days, within 90 days. Mr. Speaker, within 90 days, this Parliament have not ratified anything in respect of that matter. If you have evidence, bring it. Bring it, bring the evidence. Mr. Speaker, we are raising a matter because the President swears an oath to uphold the Constitution and the laws of Ghana. Rulings of the Supreme Court is law. He cannot be seen not respecting it. So, Minister for Monetary Evaluation, monitor this well. Monitor this well. Where is it? It is a mandatory requirement of the President. Yes, in the ruling, the previous government, headed by President Mahama, erred on the side of the law, which they corrected. And therefore, that judgment must be respected. You either bring it for ratification or you send them home.
Honorable Minister for Monetary Evaluation, do you have a point of order?
Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised the minority leader, who is usually very attentive in Parliament, is choosing to forget that the Minister of Foreign Affairs did bring this for ratification. So when he says that the President is violating the law, I don't know where it's coming from. There's a different issue Ablakwa is raising. He's raising a different matter. Mr. Speaker, it was brought to this Parliament for ratification. Now, the government has a right, unilaterally, to give them visas to stay on. That's an executive decision. It has nothing to do with Parliament. The deal with the American government has been properly ratified by this August House, period. So the President has fulfilled his constitutional obligations. Now, if you want to ask whether or not they are still here, that's a different matter. But don't say that the President has not fulfilled his obligations.
Honourable member, the minority leader is still on his feet. The minister was only permitted to intervene, so the minority leader will continue.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I'm guided by the comment of the Minister for Monetary Evaluation, but let him also be guided by, between 6th January and today, something ought to happen as a requirement. That has not happened. I maintain that strongly, but we will compare notes since this is not meant to be the only issue. Mr. Speaker, finally, let me request you to indulge me for 1 minute.
Hello?
Mr. Speaker, there are some happenings in this country that I think this Parliament must proactively and preemptively take ownership of and to correct it for the good of our democracy tomorrow. And Mr. Speaker, I just hope that you indulge me for 1 minute. On 16th March 2016, we had the Honorable Edward Duajaho sworn in under Article 6011 by then Chief Justice Mrs. Georgina Theodora Wood. Mr. Speaker, on 9th November 2010, the Speaker of Parliament, Right Honorable Joyce Bamford Addo, was sworn into office under Article 6011 by Chief Justice, and 1st October 2010. Mr. Speaker, 19th March 2008, the Speaker of Parliament, Right Honorable Virginia Sechi-Hughes, was sworn in under Article 6011. 24 February 2003, Right Honorable Peter Alajete was sworn into office under Article 6011 by then Chief Justice Mr. George Akwa. And you saw the penultimate 24th July 2012, Vice President John Dramani Mahama sworn in. Mr. Speaker, in all these instances, the Chief Justices have had to rely on an amendment of a version of the presidential oath. And Mr. Speaker, with your indulgence, I'll refer you to the attachment of the Constitution, in my Constitution, in page 205. In that presidential oath, Mr. Speaker, as you rightly noted before you took this high office on behalf of Mr. Speaker, the oath is problematic. And it's problematic because it says, having been elected. When is the Speaker deemed to have been elected as President of the Republic? Yet, the Chief Justices have struggled, probably with Parliament, to say that in compliance with Article 60(11) of the Constitution. And Mr. Speaker, like I said, I've just referred to the oath, and I want to quote it for emphasis so that I request your guidance. The presidential oath starts, and it reads, I, then the name, having been elected to the high office of president. So if the Speaker is to assume the office of president, the Constitution in 60(11)(12) requires and makes reference to a schedule. That schedule is constitutionally problematic because, but they have all done well. All the Chief Justices have avoided this, what may be a constitutional hiatus. They've used their own words to manage it. But Mr. Speaker, this Parliament must take ownership. If we have to amend this schedule, we do so accordingly to avoid a future constitutional crisis. Because if you administer an oath and the words in the oath is not in tandem with what the Constitution itself requires you to do in 60(11) and 12. Mr. Speaker, these days people walk freely to court, invoking the Supreme Court interpretive jurisdiction. That is a problem, Mr. Speaker. Then, Mr. Speaker, too, we saw Professor Michael Quay, 2 oaths were administered by her ladyship, the Chief Justice, Sophia Akufu. With greatest respect, she administered the oath of allegiance. The Speaker has already sworn an oath of allegiance. The Oath Act is against repetitiveness of oaths. We need to take a decision collective that this Parliament, how we must walk this particular path. So, Mr. Speaker, I discussed it with the majority leader. He has some ideas, but we need guidance. And this, we must prepare for eventualities as a country. But those eventualities must be dictated and guided by the Constitution of Ghana and the laws of Ghana, in order that if there are any legal defects, Parliament is clothed with the mandate and authority to correct them. If you have a Chief Justice come and say, in compliance with 60(11), Chief Justice, then 60(12) says, and Mr. Speaker, let me just read 60(12) for the record, and I'll rest my case here, so that the leader will share some of his views on this. 60(12), Mr. Speaker, reads, the Speaker shall, before commencing to perform the functions of the President under Clause 11 of this article, take and subscribe the oath set out in relation to the office of the President. Referring to the oath I referred to. Even though I essentially disagree with the notion of acting president, I disagree. I think there cannot be an alternate president. The president is only, the person is only assuming responsibility to perform the functions of the president, because you cannot have 2 presidents at any time. That is not acceptable. But I think that, Mr. Speaker, this Parliament must wake up and avoid a possible future constitutional crisis when we do not know what to do, when we are confronted with this. I'm not saying in the past it was done rightly. Neither am I talking about the president. We've done well as a country in managing this transitional arrangement, but we should deepen it well, maybe by a review of the Constitution, a reconsideration of the schedule of the oath to reflect the words that we want to use. I accordingly submit, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Honorable Majority Leader, we want to hear you on the comments and questions.
Speaker, thank you very much. I thought we were dealing with the business statement, and unfortunately, we are veering off what otherwise is not contained in the business statement at all. But because some of them have been raised, and I believe maybe to set the record straight, I must react. I may attempt some reactions. The Speaker, the first issue raised by the Honorable Mbejira, that is relating to the review of the standing orders. The Speaker, we've had some discussions on this, and we have indicated that we'll put together the technical committee that worked on the standing orders for them to review the work that the earlier one did and then act very timeously to enable the standing orders committee deal with it and then for a report finally to come to the House. So we are anticipating that in this meeting we'll be able to finish with this. But Mr. Speaker, I thought the ruling that you gave to whether or not the meeting that we held last Sunday was part of the second session ought to have settled the issue. Unfortunately, the Honorable Bejira, before he asked the question, stated that today being the first day of this meeting, I thought your ruling had settled the matter, and the Honorable Bejira should take a cue from that. Mr. Speaker, the issue raised by the Honorable Okujeto, he quoted the president, that the president made a specific statement. I honestly did not follow the statement that the president made because I was outside the jurisdiction of Accra. But I'm told on authority that the ascription that we gave to the president is not entirely correct. So you may want to cross-check your facts. But having said so, Mr. Speaker, the Business Committee couldn't program it because the remit of the Business Committee is defined under Order 160, and we cannot import into this House nothing that has not been referred to us. So if you ask us to program it for deliberation by the House, it cannot be so done because no such thing has been referred to us. And Mr. Speaker, we don't go fishing outside the chamber. The Business Committee doesn't go fishing outside Parliament to insert matters that are outside the purview of the Business Committee. The Speaker, the Honorable Helu refers us to the orders and relates to what the Council of State has to tell us. Mr. Speaker, let me draw the attention of the Honorable colleague to Article 91(3) of the Constitution. What the Council of State could do, what communication the Council of State could transmit to this House is captured in Article 91(3) of the 1992 Republican Constitution. The issue raised by the Honorable Ras Mubrak, the Code of Conduct, I think we need, once we come to consider the standing orders, we need to consider same pari passu. That, of course, would include dressing code in the House. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Clement Apak wants to be educated about the status of questions. Mr. Speaker, it is not for nothing that ministers are required to answer to questions within 3 weeks. And informed by that, I know many questions that have been asked, at least from my side of the House, that may be time-bound. That is why I'm saying to us that if members want to pursue such questions, they will know how to tweak those questions in order to let those questions be still relevant for answers to be provided by the relevant ministers. Speaker, the Honorable Minority Leader raised issues about security, and I believe clearly there are matters that could come later in the course of this meeting if the relevant resort will be applied. Mr. Speaker, his own reaction to the business statement, I don't intend to further litigate any matter with him, are related to the provisions of the standing orders and not to conventions. So if you are you are drawing attention to the fact that my reference to any convention is inaccurate, that could hold. I never made any reference to any convention. I related to the standing orders, and I said that technically we have not made any provision for it, apart from the general provision under statements. That is what I said. And unless you can fault me on that, I don't see the purpose of that intervention. The Speaker, I agree with him, the minority leader, that we may have to dedicate a day to the cause of the minority, or indeed even to the backbenchers. That is what obtains in many parliaments. Special days are dedicated to the backbenchers in order for them to be able to make short statements. And these statements help to liberate the backbenchers, some of them who may suffer from tongue-tiedness. So to liberate themselves, to be able to warm themselves to the processes and procedures in this house. And really, it helps very much in those jurisdictions. So my emphasis will even be dedicating special days to backbenchers. Mr. Speaker, I share the sentiments of the minority that when he says to us that he's aware that I have canvassed for this idea over the past 8 years. I didn't have any good ears to listen to me. And today he says that he agrees with me that we should look at this practice and see whether we'll not be able to implement same in Ghana's parliament. Mr. Speaker, I notice that almost every day people suffer from road to Damascus experience. So we take that on board. I shouldn't wait until you go into opposition before you canvass for a principled position. But I share the sentiments. And I believe being principled, I will certainly attach myself to what issue that you have raised. But don't wait until you go to the opposition before you associate yourself with issues that are raised to better and indeed enrich Parliament. Mr. Speaker, and I am not in any way inviting the minority leader to offer any response to this. Or intuitively say no. Mr. Speaker, the Gitmo 2 affair, I think the minority leader corrected himself when he conceded that indeed the matter has come to this house. And Parliament indeed has ratified the agreement. Yes, it was to a specified date. Going beyond that, what should we do? I believe, Mr. Speaker, I'm aware of certain moves that are being made with respect to that. I wouldn't want to make any disclosure until the relevant information is transmitted to Parliament. And I believe it will be any time very, very soon. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much.
Very well. Honourable members, only one matter caught my interest, the matter relating to an agreement to be ratified on Gitmo 2. Yes, Honourable.
The minority leader raised some other matter that we had discussed earlier with respect to the presidential oath. I indicated to him what convention that this House has applied itself to. And I'm happy that on occasions the minority leader is applying conventions. But sometimes he also wants to depart from conventions. Because he just told us, the Speaker, with respect to whether or not specific provisions must be made for business statement. He says that, oh, because we have been engaging in conventions, we should allow conventions to hold. Now, he goes back to say that, this convention you must have a second look at. But, Mr. Speaker, I agree that on the face of it, the provision contained in the schedule, in the second schedule, may not apply. And we need really to tweak it. It's for Parliament to attend to it. Mr. Speaker, the Constitution provides for this in, I think, Article 298, Article 298, which provides for the residual powers of Parliament, subject to the provisions of Chapter 25 of this Constitution, where on any matter, whether arising out of this Constitution or otherwise, there is no provision, express or by necessary implication of this Constitution which deals with the matter that has arisen, Parliament shall, by an Act of Parliament, not being inconsistent with any provision of this Constitution, provide for that matter to be dealt with. The Speaker, yes, we have been applying ourselves to convention, but I believe that it may become imperative for Parliament to pass an Act of Parliament to relate and indeed streamline that provision in the Constitution. Unfortunately for us, that particular provision is not entrenched. And I believe we can easily handle that. Except to say, Mr. Speaker, that whilst we are this, if one looks at Article 181, we may have to make necessary modifications to the second schedule, the presidential oath, in respect of the President assuming the functions of the President, the Speaker assuming the functions of the President. But 181, Mr. Speaker, provides that is 3. No loan shall be raised by government on behalf of itself or any other public institution or authority otherwise than by or under the authority of an Act of Parliament. And then 5 provides that this article, with the necessary modifications by Parliament, apply to an international business or economic transaction to which the government is a party as it applies to a loan. The Speaker, Parliament is charged to do this. Again, we have applied ourselves to a convention, and we have never confronted the reality by coming with a specific act to modify the content of Article 181(3). So whilst we are this, let's be addendum on these matters, where it is required of us to provide the necessary modifications, as the Honorable Okuyeto is asking us to do in respect of the second schedule, the presidential oath. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Very well. In respect of Article 108, I recall that Speaker Doya Jaho set a committee. We actually put together a lot of working documents. Yes. We never completed the work. So, Honorable, we are done with the business statement. So let me conclude work on the business statement, then or you want another bite on the business statement? Very well, let me hear you.
Mr. Speaker, we've had a lot of conventions and guidance taken from you this morning. It's a very important provision of the standing orders that probably will require guidance from you. Mr. Speaker, when you came in this morning, you addressed us. Mr. Speaker, you addressed us sitting in your chair. Order 97 says that when Mr. Speaker rises to address the House, any member then standing shall immediately resume his seat, and Mr. Speaker shall be heard in silence. Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether the convention of sitting to address the House has overtaken this particular provision in the standing order. Thank you.
Honourable Member, Order 97 comes under order in the House. So that situation arises when there is disorder and the Mr. Speaker wants to be heard in silence, then he will rise to indicate that everybody else must resume his seat. We have never had a disorder in this House ever since I've been in the House, so the need has not arisen yet. I really wanted us to address our minds to this Gitmo 2 issue. To the best of my knowledge, we ratified a convention here, and the date and records are available. We ratified the agreement, but that agreement has expired. So if there's no new agreement, what will come before the House? So I think the issue is not really about bringing anything before the House, because the agreement under which the two were brought into the country has expired. If the government is minded to enter into another agreement, and it so does, then that agreement may be brought to the House for ratification. Honourable members, the business statement of the House is hereby adopted. Now, at the commencement of public business, item number 5. Sorry? Honourable members, item 5. Presentation of papers. Minister of Energy. Majority Leader, is the minister in the House, or is anybody ready to do it?
Speaker, respectfully, unless I am suffering from optical illusion, I believe the item that we are dealing with is presentation of papers, which is item number 4.
The other paper has been amended. You recall that the business statement was not on the other paper. And so when it was inserted as number 3, the order of business had to change. The numbering had to change.
Speaker, did I hear you say that the convention is being added to the item?
Sorry?
I'm not sure you said the convention is being added to the item to increase the number to 5.
No.
The Speaker amended the business statement. Okay. Yes, but you cannot add the convention.
Yes, honourable member for Huawei.
Mr. Speaker, we all heard you and we agreed with you. In any case, this convention we are talking about is so important. It has to be isolated. Look at your other papers that you have been preparing as a majority leader. What do we have? We have business statements on Fridays, and then statements. Why do you do that? Why do you know? And so the Speaker said that he has inserted business statement and then invited you. You forgot. Don't be forgetting like that.
Mr. Speaker, I don't want the honourable member for Wa West to lead you into temptation to, on your own, amend the other paper for us. Mr. Speaker, don't allow the honourable member to lead you into that temptation. And I believe the honourable member for Wa West knows that the Speaker would not attempt to do that.
Mr. Speaker.
Okay. I invited you to tell me who is going to present a paper
Mr. Speaker,
on behalf of the Minister for
the Honorable Minister for Monitoring Evaluation would do the work for the Minister responsible for energy. That is in 5, now 5E. Now 5E.
Yes, Honorable Minister for Monitoring Evaluation.
The 2018 work program of the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation.
The paper is duly late, and it is referred to the Committee of Energy for consideration and report. Item number 5B.
Protocol to the Constitutive Act of the African Union relating to the Pan-African Parliament dated 27 June 2014.
The protocol has been duly presented and is referred to the Committee on Foreign Affairs for consideration and report. Yes, Honorable Minority Leader.
Speaker, if you will indulge me, once we have the foreign minister in the House, I'm aware that there are many other international treaties and protocols that Ghana, and for that matter, the President, have signed on to on behalf of the Republic. It's important that in view of the Supreme Court ruling, we are apprised of them relative to the Getmo II ruling. Parliament must be seen together with the executive, working in tandem with that judicial organ of state, that we are respecting that all these treaties and conventions are ratified in accordance with Article 75 of the Constitution. We don't need to wait until somebody goes to court questioning whether this agreement passed through Parliament or not. So just for a comment so that the foreign minister can take note. If you want me to name some, since you are only eyeing there, I'll leave my case, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Do you want to comment? Yes, Honorable Minister.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Table Office has informed us of those that are outstanding, so we're working with them to ensure that they come to the House eventually. Thank you.
Mining agreements.
Yes, Honorable Member for Boko Central.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Except to caution that it is not at all times that when a president signs an international agreement that he has to automatically have it ratified in his country. Because our Constitution makes a distinction between signing and ratification for it to come into effect. Sometimes you sign because you accept the principle at the international level, but at the domestic level, your situation hasn't gotten to a point where you want the force of the terms of that agreement to become binding on you. And so you may want to have a time lag between when you sign as a president and when you want the agreement to come into force in your country. And so I will caution the Foreign Ministry that we should not just have a wholesale transmission of every agreement that we have signed, because sometimes we ratify them and either our business community or some other interest group begin to think that we haven't really paid attention to their interest in wanting those terms to come into force in our country. So this is just a caution. This is just a caution. But then we should not think that any time that a president signs an agreement, it must automatically come into force in our country. It may not be in our interest.
Honorable Member for, Minister for monitoring evaluation. Do you have a point of order?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I don't know where he's getting this word sign from. Our constitution is not seized with the word sign. Execute or cause to be executed. The two are not, when were they the same things? He said execute. It didn't say sign. So the question is irrelevant. Execute. It didn't say sign. It didn't say sign. So let's be careful.
Bring your intervention to your advice to your conclusion now. So.
When you go and at an international conference, the foreign minister will help you. She's sitting by you. You sign an agreement, usually with a green pen. You would have executed, but ratification and it coming into force will be a completely different matter. So the language, the words are interchangeable. When I say sign, it also means execution. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. And I want to hear the Honorable Minister for Foreign Affairs. I didn't recognize you. I recognize the Honorable Minister for Foreign Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm not going to go into this argument, but I can assure the honorable member that whatever agreements, treaties, conventions, protocols that we sign, before they are ratified, we will ensure that it is done in the best interest of our nation. Thank you.
Yes, honorable member for Efutu.
Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Ayariga was cautioned, and in one breath, my understanding was I was making a legal argument. So in one breath, I got the understanding that he was making a legal argument in respect of ratification of treaties. Mr. Speaker, I accordingly took the Constitution to look at what he was referring to. With the greatest respect, when an agreement is executed or signed, as Honorable Akoto said would want, signed, the provision in the Constitution per Article 75 is that same shall be ratified by Parliament. The issue of getting the ratification done belatedly is another matter. Because once the President has executed, it presupposes, Mr. Speaker, it presupposes that he knows.
You will listen to me.
Very well.
There's no issue. The Honorable Minority Leader had drawn the attention of the Minister that there were a number of international agreements signed but not ratified. So we were advising her to bring them. And then the Honorable Member for Boko Central was saying that sometimes, if I understand him correctly, the non-ratification is a strategy. And so you should not consider bringing them wholesale. So there's no real issue to be debated. If you want to raise any other issue, we have some time. I'll recognize that. But on this one, there's nothing really to be considered. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Mr. Speaker, you know that we'll always take a cue. We'll always take a cue. But Mr. Speaker, when the Constitution makes a mandatory provision, is there any option to delay? Because, Mr. Speaker, I beg to read that a treaty, agreement, or convention executed by or under the authority of the President shall be subject to ratification. So it means that once you've done, Mr. Speaker, as to once you've done, it shall be done. So, Mr. Speaker, I would rest my case on this. I'll rest my case on this, except to say that I agree with the minority leader. The minority leader. That all those that have been executed should come. Yes, it should come. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
As honorable member for Okaikwe Central.
Rightly so, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I disagree with my colleague from Ifutu. To the extent that, Mr. Speaker, when some treaties are executed by the President, the terms of some of the treaties require that a certain number of states do assent to it before it comes into force. So when my colleague from Boku Central was saying that the President was bound or he has that latitude to delay, I thought he was referring to that aspect within the terms of international law. So for my colleague from Ekfutu to be lecturing us on non-existent law.
I think the more critical part is that some of these agreements impose some responsibilities on the country. And if you think that you're not economically ready, you delay the ratification, hoping that the number of countries that will ratify, there will be a shortfall. So your responsibility will not come into force soon. So it's still a strategy that countries employ during those circumstances. Honorable Majority Leader, it is just before 1 o'clock. The business before me is exhausted. Any indication?
Well, Speaker, I thought the issue that we discussed this morning was to create some space for the leadership. The minority leader gave indication that he wanted to address a few things. I don't know whether he has exhausted them, but if he has not, maybe space may be given him to make a few remarks. But, Mr. Speaker, on this matter that you have adequately ruled on, we have all quoted the relevant article relating to the ratification of treaties and so on. But that is Article 75. Mr. Speaker, is it not the case that if a president executes a treaty, agreement, or convention in the name of Ghana, which treaty has to be ratified by Parliament, Parliament, in scrutinizing the treaty, could apply itself to Article 40 and say to us, as representatives of Ghanaians, that this treaty is inimical to the interests of the people of this country, and therefore stall the implementation of the treaty. Mr. Speaker, it could be done. We could apply ourselves to Article 40 and prevent the implementation of the treaty, convention, or agreement. Mr. Speaker, that's my take. But having said so, Mr. Speaker, I believe, as agreed, you may allow some space to the minority that to make his own opening remarks.
Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, is just to take opportunity to join you in welcoming colleagues back to the second session. Mr. Speaker, absenteeism and the general lack of members of parliament demonstrating respect to time, we are accountable to the Ghanaian people, and there are deep concerns as to when the House commences work. Additional to it, Mr. Speaker, is when the House even is in session or having a meeting and dealing with any matter. Now, because of thanks to the coverage of GTV, I'm told, the Ghanaian public is concerned and worried about numbers whenever we are considering a particular business as Parliament. be it a scrutiny of the budget or even statement, they can observe. As Mr. Speaker, you yourself, you are observing a number of vacancies. That cannot be acceptable. We need to marry the constituency obligation and responsibilities with business, and therefore I will urge that members report to work on time. Mr. Speaker, members shouldn't even be waiting until you assume your seat. I know that sometimes even you have to gauge the temperament in the House before you walk towards sitting. But I think that generally, Mr. Speaker, we had a very good first session, unprecedented in terms of the workload and business. Mr. Speaker, the second comment will be committee's work. But again, your good committee on standing orders. But Mr. Speaker, committees are not making use of the budgetary allocations allocated to committees, particularly to conduct further scrutiny and to make use of the money, and sometimes even to travel for better experience and exposure. I believe that we should get the committee chairman and ranking members work assiduously on this particular matter. Mr. Speaker, whilst we were away at Westminster, the President announced the appointment of his candidate for office of Special Prosecutor, I believe in accordance with Clause 13 of the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act 2017, Act 959. It is a shared responsibility of the President nominating the candidate for the approval of Parliament. We expect that the necessary processes will be respected. It's not for the President and the Minister for Information to concentrate in informing the Ghanaian public. The appropriate place where we should have notification of the appointment of the Special Prosecutor in accordance with the law, his nomination, is Parliament, because the committee that you chair, the Appointments Committee, will scrutinize the candidate and make a recommendation to plenary for us to consider in accordance with the Act. We look forward to that. The President can be assured that on the matter of corruption, not just consensus, there's unanimity across that we need to deal with it and punish it and make it a high-risk activity. We will scrutinize the candidate and satisfy ourselves that he has met the minimum legal, moral, and other character requirement for that important post. Mr. Speaker, generally, we should commend you and the Speaker, as I have said, except, again, for the record, I have seen two instances where the Speaker have referred motions to a committee without the House taking a decision. The decisions of this House are by motion, and therefore we will need to manage this, that whatever it is, a question must always be put on the motion before the referral is done, in accordance with the standing orders and the Constitution of Ghana. I'm sure it's a matter I could raise at our level, but I think that it's happened 2 times, and it can question. Even though we are masters of our procedure, we need to respect the Constitution and the standing order, because largely some sections of the standing orders are a lift from the provisions of the 1992 Constitution. And Mr. Speaker, we are learning. I believe that our Parliament is doing its best as a citadel of democracy. Members are encouraged to file as many questions as possible for the exercise of oversight and to make statements on important issues of public interest. I thank you for the opportunity, and I wish you and the Speaker good health and the grace of God as you see us through this session. Thank you. And best wishes and Happy New Year to all honorable colleagues.
Yes, the Honorable Majority Leader. We wish to comment on the issues raised by the Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I also rise to add my voice to welcome members to this meeting from recess. Mr. Speaker, I would want to believe that the recess has been worthwhile, restful, and fruitful, despite the short duration and the intermittent recalls that the resource period came to be subjected to. Mr. Speaker, on Friday, the 5th of January 2018, the House was recalled under Article 112(3) of the 1992 Constitution and Order 38(1) of the Standing Orders of the House, which required the Speaker to convene a meeting of the House within 7 days after the receipt of a request for a special meeting of the House from a minimum of 15% of the total membership of this House. Mr. Speaker, this was upon a request by the Minority Chief Whip and the member for Asawase, inviting the House to investigate the levy and collection by the Ministry of Trade and Industry of the Ghana cedi equivalent of various sums of money in the United States of American dollars from expatriate businesses and related matters during the recently held Ghana Expatriate Business Awards in Accra. Mr. Speaker, the House subsequently constituted a 5-member ad hoc committee to fully investigate the matter and report to the House on the 24th of January 2018. Mr. Speaker, leadership is informed by the committee that they have not been able to conclude their public sittings on the matter and want an extension of time to finish with the inquiry. Leadership accordingly has agreed to the request and granted them 1 more week. In the event the committee is required to submit their report not later than Wednesday, the 31st of January 2018. The Speaker, on Sunday, 21st of January 2018, the House was again recalled for the swearing in of our own Right Honorable Speaker, Professor Aaron Michael Okwei, to fulfill the functions of the President in accordance with Article 6011 of the 1992 Constitution. Let me take this opportunity to express my appreciation to honorable members for responding to the call to duty, especially on the second occasion, despite the very, very short notice that was given to members. The Speaker, this meeting promises to be a very hectic one, since there are a number of businesses that the House is expected to transact. The President is scheduled to deliver his message on the state of the nation on Thursday, the 8th of February 2018. And the House is also expected to approve the proposed formula for the distribution of the various statutory funds for 2018. GET funds, health insurance funds, these are semi-common funds during the meeting. Speaker, presentation and consideration of a number of bills, agreements, legislative instruments, among others, have been scheduled for this meeting. Mr. Speaker, I agree with the Minority Leader that we shall have to deal with the vetting of the Special Prosecutor who has been nominated by the President. Mr. Speaker, the Minority Leader has raised an issue relating to how the Speaker has responded to motions that have been filed. The Speaker, the content of a motion that is filed could be referred to a committee. The essence of a motion is to cause Parliament to perform a function, to do a task. And if the matter is referred to the committee, and the committee brings a report and Parliament votes on that report, Parliament takes a decision on the motion as to whether to do what proposal is contained in the motion or otherwise. Mr. Speaker, so procedurally, I do not think that the resort by the Speaker could be faulted by any stretch of imagination. Mr. Speaker, you will agree that the review of the standing orders, and we witnessed same this morning, has been long overdue. Permit me, therefore, to entreat the appropriate committee, in this case the technical committee and subcommittee, to work expeditiously in order for the House to bring the matter of the review of the standing orders to a definite closure. Mr. Speaker, this matter has lingered on for far too long. Mr. Speaker, This year marks 25 years of parliamentary democracy in Ghana. A quarter of a century of robust parliamentary democracy without any liberationist or redemptionist or revolutionary or defensive afflictions. Whether or not they are supreme, provisional, or transitional, they have always bore the name council and have always combined legislative and executive functions. In that regard, the nation has lost out on transparency and accountability in spite of the spirited pretensions to the contrary. Mr. Speaker, God has indeed been gracious to us as a nation, and as such, this milestone anniversary is an occasion to reflect on the accomplishment of our Parliament and ponder on key challenges facing us as a country in our quest to expand the frontiers of Ghana's democratic governance. I will therefore propose that the House sets aside 1 week, preferably the first week of March, to celebrate this enviable achievement. The Speaker, in our quest to ensure that we have a productive session, I would entreat my colleague members of Parliament to be time conscious and participate in all the activities of both the chamber and committees. The Speaker, as the minority leader has alluded to, on occasions during the previous meeting, this House had to suspend sittings, often because of lack of quorum. These developments do not add value to the image of Parliament. These developments rather enhanced the perception that Parliament is not a serious body and that we do not merit our emoluments. That is why I urge honorable members, Mr. Speaker, to put in their best and rise to the occasion to ensure that the House discharges its duties satisfactorily. By so doing, it is expected that the substantial progress would be made by the end of this meeting. The House, in all likelihood, Mr. Speaker, may adjourn on the 22nd of March, preparatory to the Easter holidays, and also to enable Parliament participate in relevant statutory engagements. The World Assembly of Parliaments is supposed to convene on the 23rd of March, to which meeting the Speaker, the Minority Leader, and the Majority Leader have been invited to make inputs. So, if we should adjourn on the 23rd, as I earlier indicated, we may miss out on the event slated for the 23rd of March, which then may mean that we may have to adjourn on the 22nd and then be able to jet out to be able to participate in that event, which begins at 2 o'clock on the 23rd of March. Mr. Speaker, to the clerk and staff, I will urge them to continue to be very dutiful, diligent, and tactful in their duties and exhibit demonstrable political neutrality and impartiality in their quest to build a parliament that will stand the test of time. To the parliamentary press corps, I entreat them to report accurately to ensure that the populace is well informed of the proceedings of the House. Mr. Speaker, I wish all of us a very, very fruitful meeting. And I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity granted. Once again, Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Very well. Honorable leaders, very well said. I hope that at the next business meeting you consider how you plan and what content there should be in the celebration of the 25th anniversary of the continuous democratic. Our parliament is the biggest gainer, because any time there is an interruption, it is parliament that suffers. So it is parliament that has gained, for the first time, 25 years of uninterrupted parliamentary practice, and I think it is worth celebrating. Except that I suggest that we make sure that the celebration is relevant to the people we represent in how we engage them on this occasion. But having said that, leaders, I have often been worried about the numbers too. And I suggest that the whips are more proactive this time. Because on any day when you look around and you have less than 50 members of parliament in the chamber, the record of proceedings or votes and proceedings will show over 200 members, which means that members are signing and staying in their offices, or that on any day there are too many committee meetings. I think we should also regulate how many meetings we register a day so as to free members to be able to be in the chamber. There's just one more thing I wish to acknowledge. In the vacation, one of our colleagues got married. And I think it is appropriate that we congratulate her. The honorable member for well, she's still enjoying her honeymoon, and she's entitled to that, isn't she? So I congratulate the honorable member for Afija, Kwabre. Yes, honorable member for Kwabre East. Afija Sejre, very well, I congratulate the honorable member for Afija Sejre East on her marriage. There's one pending when the ceremony is over, we'll congratulate him. Yes. Honorable Majority Leader, I think at this time I'll call for the motion for the closure. Motion for adjournment, turn over.
The Speaker, the Honorable Minority Leader has just given me a very good indication. He informed me that during the recess, one of our members got pregnant, and that is worth celebrating. Yes, we got on that happy note. Yes, we got on that happy note. I beg to move that this House adjourns until tomorrow, Wednesday, at 10 o'clock in the forenoon. I beg to move.
Yes, Honorable Minority Leader.
Speaker, I beg to second the motion and to note that former President Mbeki of South Africa is reported to have said that pregnancy is a good indication how and why women are not able to keep some secrets. On that note, as leader have said, you can adjourn now. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, the motion has been moved and seconded. The question is, all in favor say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. This House is adjourned to tomorrow, Wednesday, the 24th of January, 2018, at 10 o'clock in the forenoon.